Hi.
A lot of you snuck in during some music and things. I didn't see you here. It was really nice. Thank you for saying that, what you said earlier, Norma, and also you playing. Last night I was laying in bed and I thought, why do they keep having me back? Because I'm a really depressing speaker. and I was like, it's okay, because, you know, we're all just doing the best we can and moving on. But it does seem that as I look through my life and I pick these topics, that they're not always the happiest topics. You know, they're not always the ones that make us want to go out and celebrate after. They're just like, they're depressing. And it's not that my life is totally depressing, like I have a very good life overall, I really do. But I like to, what I call, dive deep and surface. And I have always been like that. My friends are like, you ask too many questions, you know, too many feelings, too much shit, you know. Like, can't we just have fun? And I'm like, yeah, we can have fun. But sometimes I believe that these blocks of resistance that we get in our lives, in the topic of this talk is called freedom from resistance, that these blocks we have come because we're not looking at the patterns that we get in our life. And that became fully apparent to me just last November. I spoke here right after a friend died, and then I spoke here, and then the following week, right before Thanksgiving, I was on my way to Lake Junaluska about 6 a.m. to go for a run, and every indicator light on my Subaru popped on, and it was like Christmas. It was like bing, 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 and I was like, oh my God, like every one, not just the tire or the oil, but all of them. And so I pulled over, and I'm looking through the manual and trying to figure it out. Couldn't figure it out. So later in the day, I took the car up to Subaru, and overall I was doing well at this point. I was like, car problems, all good, life is good, my life is good, everything always works out, it's good. And I took it up to Subaru, and they're like, well, you know, it's your transmission, and it's going to be $1,600. Well, initially I was like, oh, because all of last year, part of my theme was this theme of lack. Every month I had a large expense, and every month I felt like I was just barely meeting my expenses and doing what I needed to do, and buying cat food, putting gas in the car, and, you know. And I know this is a story many of us can share at this point in our lives and in this economy. And there's just so much to do, and things keep coming up. Right? One expense after another, from hearing aids to transmissions to books for classes. It just goes on and on. So, so this awareness of abundance that I have, I was getting tired of it. And with the car going to $1,600, I was like, I just don't have it. I just literally don't have it. And I need my car. Last year, I speak at like 9 different centers, and I hope that continues to grow, but I put over 5,000 miles just driving to and from centers to speak, which is an incredible honor that I keep getting asked. But so anyway, so the car, the transmission, I say, how far can I drive the car? And they're like, you can drive it until you actually feel some shifting stuff going on. Then I would stop, and I was like, okay. So I quit driving it actually. But that Sunday I got a ride to Open Door, which is my home spiritual center. And I was asking people, where do you take your car in Waynesville or Silva? You know, what do you do? And I got some solutions, and someone actually offered me a car. They said, you can drive one of our cars until you get yours fixed. And I was like, oh yeah, thank you. Sure. Like, I appreciate it, like that. But inside, I didn't really believe that they were offering me this true gift. And I know that I didn't feel like I deserved it or that I warranted it. I was like, yeah, well, thank you. God, you guys, you're so special. And I hugged them, and I left, right? And didn't take them up on that offer. And then Monday, I was walking with a friend around Lake Junaluska, and all she said was, you know, last summer I had a really hard time, and there's this video that really helped me. It's this online video, it really helped me. You should watch it. And I was like, yeah, I will. Email me, text me the title, and I'll look it up. Right. Right out of my head. And then I decided to put my motorcycle up for sale. Some people saw that on Facebook. That was just, I thought, this is the right thing, do the right thing. You have some resources, you have an asset that's kind of free and clear, just sell it, you know? All is good. Well, I didn't really want to sell it, and of course, when you don't have that energy behind something, that no one even hit on it, and so I was like, well, it must not be meant to be. So I had a diagnostic just to check Subaru, of course, and I was told this time that, yeah, it would still run about $1,600, but they didn't think my 2015 Cross Truck was worth it. And that really started the spiral. That really started the spiral. I was like, I can't afford a new car, I can't afford this. I felt like I was alone in the world again. And I started making plans to do anything, like it would be easier for me to buy a new car and to take out a new loan than it would have been to come up with the cash to have that kind of repair done on a vehicle at that moment in November. And I was sincerely angry with God. I was pissed. It was the end of the year. It had been a long haul of a year for me, and financially. And I was done, and I was tired. Because as you know, financial stuff is one of my themes. And so, I was at a total loss. I couldn't figure out what was going on, why this keeps happening to me. I obviously had become a victim to my own circumstances, and I'm trying to figure that out. I do everything right. I have a strong spiritual program. I share honestly. I tithe. I tithe. And I'm just kind of like, I hit a point of depression. I just spiraled out that I hadn't felt in a very long time. This kind of hopelessness around, being successful. I'm an ordained minister. I have a doctorate. I have a really good job, and yet something in my head that says, if I can't pay for my transmission, I may as well just call it quits right now. Don't know how that happens, but we hit that point. And my mind wouldn't shut down. I was ashamed of myself. There was full of embarrassment and guilt. And I kept thinking, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here. I should be more successful, more abundant, more able to take care of myself and my things and my pets. And then, so I was at a real point that I had not been at in several years. And then in the morning reading one day that week, this was my morning reading, without sincere appreciation to God for everything you experience, the opportunity to balance the energy will only be partially realized. And it will be necessary for you to duplicate the experience, to repeat the exercise in infinite variations of expression until the balance is achieved and ideally the lesson is well learned and integrated into the conscious awareness. And that's what I believe. I've always believed that. We need to dive deep and resurface. Things happen, similar or repetitive themes. Dive deep, resurface, until we fully understand it and integrate it into our conscious awareness. Well, so this is when I remembered the video. And I thought, okay. So I called my friend. I got the name again because I don't know where it happened to the email she sent me. Probably deleted it because I thought, yeah, that won't work. And so I got it, and I looked it up, and it turned out to be on removing blocks of resistance. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And so I listened to it, and it's one of those videos, it's not very well done, not at all like what we're familiar in Unity and New Thought, and the well-polished, rehearsals of people who do these meditations and raise our spirits. And this woman, I can't remember her name right now, but if anyone's interested, I'll send you the link. She was like, And so she was like, okay, you know, we all witnessed Norman's wonderful meditation today. And this is what she did. She was like, okay, take a deep breath. And I'm used to like that. She was like, okay. So, and then now I want you to do this. Okay. And now we move on. And it was just that quick. And I was like, kind of like jumpy in my own kitchen doing this meditation at the table. And I was like, take a deep breath, and you don't even get time to expel it, and she was on to the next thing. But what that did was stop me from thinking too much. I really believe it did. And also, the questions that she asked were not about me at all, where it was only, when did I first feel this? When did I first experience this depth of despair? And what was going on with the people around me? Something I honestly, in 40 years of recovery, have not really considered. And to step out of my own story and to look at the people around me just about broke my heart. And I think this was, for me, a point of recognition. I looked at the first memory I had was of my mom and dad driving me to the hospital. I think some of you know that my childhood story is that I was very sick as a child. I didn't attend elementary school, and I was tutored by college students. And I spent a lot of time in the hospital at the University of Minnesota and at St. Mary's in Duluth. And we were on the way to the hospital, and I was in the makeshift bed in the back seat of a white Plymouth. Like, I remember these details so clearly, but I didn't. First time I remembered my dad talking to my mom and saying, we can't afford her. And I just started crying. And it wasn't about that, what they said about me, it was that this message of lack, this message of poverty, this message of my dad worked really hard. He didn't always make the best choices in his parenting styles, but he worked really hard. He was a railroader. My mom, I realized, never worked or couldn't hold down a job. It wasn't because of her, it was because she had to be home taking care of me. It was the first time I really looked at their stories and that why they maybe made the choices that they made. And I realized clearly that this wasn't my story. This was their story. And this thought that I can never get ahead, this thought that I'm never good enough, this thought that I'm unlikable because my siblings didn't like me at that time either. And watching how all of that plays into who I am today. At 63, I just had a birthday, and I'm still in kind of stunned amazement that I hadn't learned this lesson until now, that to quit looking at my own story, to step outside of myself, and to have that compassion for others. And so part of the problem is that each of us feel, I know, that when something happens, we feel deeply alone sometimes in our own soul, victimized by the circumstances of our environment and of our choices. I know that that is true. And this is what we resist, I think, this feeling, because that despair is not easy sometimes. But because of that despair, we can also realize the other, that ever-growing oneness that happens within community and with our friends. And sometimes it's our faith and our understanding of such that gets in the way. Our very understanding of our faith can be our block to resistance, because like I was saying, I have a strong faith, and yet at the same time within that faith I'm saying, I should be more, I should be better, I should be able to deal with this. Those shoulds and those kind of concepts that we hold on ourselves. And then on the other hand, we also have the faith that we can't enable people, right? We can't take care of people, we can only be there to assist them. So when someone is in need, there's a difficulty for us to either receive the gifts that are offered or to actually offer to help others, especially those we don't know. And that is a fine line, I know. The difference between enabling and being supportive is a very, very fine line. But all we can do when we come up to that line is check our perception of faith at the door and then do what is ours to do. Whether or not that initial response is this is good or bad, or this she shouldn't need this, or I shouldn't be in this position, is to check our faith at the door and then do what we need to do. And so what I came to fully understand is that we can't have one without the other. We can't have, the moon without the sun, and the day without the night, and winter without spring. And that for me, to stop resisting, to stop really resisting, to really work on, continue to remove those blocks of resistance, and really to stop trying to explain to people who aren't ready to listen about who I am. Resistance sometimes is centered in our desire to overcome and to be better than we are. That's not a bad thing, but sometimes that resistance is a focus on winning, right? To achieve more and more, which isn't always necessary to our daily lives. To give up the battle and the struggle and the blame of our stories and to move forward. And I think this is faith. Everything always works out if we simply release the justification and the need for validation. This is what I call my edge of alignment these days. An edge of alignment. We can flip a switch and the electricity comes on, and then we can flip a switch and a new spiritual light comes on as well. And we can see into the darkness of our own soul and come out on the other side. All of those nooks and crannies and those perceptions that we have of other people and of ourselves are just stories. Some of those stories challenge our foundation, like mine did. It kind of shook it right down to the core. And yet we can figuratively embrace even those we distrust and those who have hurt us. If we don't, then in my experience, more than likely, this repetitive pattern will come back to haunt me. I don't want that. All of these experiences in our lives, whether they're good or bad, or they cause us grief and pain or happiness, are simply signposts of transition on the path that we're already on. And when we're able to release resistance to being right or to being better than or different or more or less, and then these opportunities are able to present a new view of life and allow us to review it and to dig deeper and then to come out on the other side, and allows choice for change and allows choice for continued growth. When we are tested with the winds of change, of like this, it's our faith and our inner foundation that's being tested. Who are we? What have we become in our faith? And who do we want to be? And how did we get here? And I'm not talking about health or transmissions or the death of loved ones even, though these things are energy. And even when these things happen, we need to do what is right for us. We need to check our faith at the door. And just because we take care of our body, we have to remember, just because we take care of who we are spiritually, doesn't mean things don't happen in our lives. That we create our reality, but we create our reality in how we handle the circumstances of our lives. And I think that was a fine line twist for me coming out of Science of Mind, that there's this Science of Mind guilt that says, whatever happens in your life, you've created it through your thought process, right? And that means illness, death, transmissions, flat tires. There's a way of phrasing that where we have, we have to take responsibility for the crap we've created in our lives. And it's like, yeah, that's not the way it goes. I think I finally figured out Ernest Holmes after a long time, because Ernest can be very confusing. And that's not it. It's how do we deal with the circumstances? And where do we, when I say we check our faith at the door, I don't mean we leave it behind, but we check where we are when we're entering into a new example. We open in a new door of opportunity. Where do we stand in our faith at this moment? And how do we move forward? That's the resistance for me, because I want to bring the past with me with my stories. And what I believe is that it's ego that poses the greatest limitation to our development. And it's that delicate balance between enlightenment and selfless service that truly experiences the oneness of our lives. So regardless of what you find within, I encourage you to act with compassion and love for our fellow beings. What I know is that it was the compassion and love that I felt from my community and the people in my life that carried me to the other side of those couple weeks. Rasha says to act on our inner convictions and to reach beyond the mundane, for a world of wonder awaits us when resistance to change is replaced by a willingness to embrace the other within. And the other within is each of you. Each of you is within me. Every day and everything we do, we are all one. What I know is that when I came to these great understandings for me, I'm not saying that I found the big T truth. I didn't share this story to say this, that like, follow me, please, I would be wary. But it's more to say that there's always more things out there when life happens to us. And life sometimes seems to take from us things that we don't want to lose. But if you remember anything, remember these two things. One, is all there is love. The rest is a story that we've created based on our experiences. And two, I sincerely believe it's our contributions to others that will make the greatest difference in the coming times. So be kind to others and be kind to yourself. Thank you.